Alright, so I'm about to produce this video as a list, some sort that for characters that I want to see in Opera Omnia for each franchise. So live with me on this one. I'm just inspired to do a list today. And furthermore, this will cover the main series, Type 0, Tactics, and the Crystal Chronicles franchise as a whole. So, let me know in the comments if you have some character ideas. And furthermore, disclaimer, I know there are some consensus character picks that everyone wants to be in DFFOO. Consensus meaning the majority wants them to be in DFFOO, so I'm not gonna count the consensus pick. This would be not considering the consensus overall pick for each franchise. So, who knows, you might see any new faces here. So let's get down with it. Final Fantasy 1. We got Princess Sarah here. To be honest, I think she's the consensus number 1 pick. Maybe Motoya is the consensus pick, but I'm gonna go ahead. Princess Sarah, number on Final Fantasy 1. Other picks could include Jack from Stranger Paradise, but we have yet to see what he does in the proper game. Princess Sarah, I see her as a support. She may turn up, I don't know. How does she fit in the story? Because Warrior of Light is long forgotten. Everyone thinks Onion Knight is Warrior of Light, so who knows? Up to the next person in the list, Final Fantasy 2. We got Minwoo, who looks like Shadi from Yu-Gi-Oh! So, yeah. Consensus or not, he is tied with Ricard on being the most demanded character to be added in from FF2. So, I choose Minwoo here. We have yet to get the Ultima spell as a representation in Final Fantasy 2, the Ultima spell. So, yeah, Minwoo is a good bet. You can bet on Minwoo to have the Ultima spell. Either it's EX or an LD. So, Minwoo, Final Fantasy 2, he's my best candidate for a character that I want to see. On to number 3, we're gonna get a little bit deep here. It's Lunette. So considering DFFOO is a multiversal thing, we could potentially see the remake version of FF3 as a separate world compared to the Onion Knight-ish world of the original NES Final Fantasy 3. It could be this would be the multiverse of FF3, I don't know. But if somehow Materia gets Lunette or Refia or Dingus or Ark into the game, it would be fun to see how he interacts with the Onion Knight. Seeing the multiple generations of Onion Knights meeting up, and yeah, I can see him as a DPS. He could be a knight with the kit of a knight. Or maybe if Square is a little bit spicy, he can give him other jobs like the Geomancer. So yeah, Lunette is my pick for FF3. FF4. So we got Mr. Neckbeard himself. Fusoya, the Lunarian. So for FF4, there are many people that kinda want Rubicant. So I think Rubicant is the consensus pick. However, Fusoya is the Lunarian that teams up with Golbez, so he could have an interesting dynamic in the storyline with Golbez. And I just like to use him more in the FFOO because we just use him for a while in Final Fantasy 4. He is very late into the game. So him arriving very late into the story of the Sage of Final Fantasy Opera Omnia makes sense. Obviously, he is a Lunarian, so he is a mage magic user. He's a mage. He could embody holy element, maybe. So yeah. Okay, cross that. I think Rubicon is not the consensus pick. I am thinking that many people would want Tella to be in the game. So yeah, Fusaya is also not a consensual pick. So I pick him because it's obvious that everyone wants Stella to be in the DFFOO. Him and Strago dynamic, but Fusaya, Strago, the old man, yeah. Speaking of old men, original warrior of Dawn, Kelgar, the werewolf, comes in for Final Fantasy V. So, Final Fantasy V, we got the original people, Dorgan, that's Bart's dad, Galoof. I forgot the other one. And then we got Kelgar. The other one is Lena's dad. So, Kelgar is the final Dawn warrior, so he can have an interesting dialogue with Galoof. We can also see him as a warrior type character, DPS. Hell, he is a rabid. He's a werewolf, so you can see him as a berserker, to be honest. But Galoof already has a berserker kit. I don't know. It's up to the devs, but I see him mostly as a physical DPS if added to the Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. Kelgar for Final Fantasy V. Final Fantasy VI is we got the guy who is lying on his face, Baram. So one thing DFFOO does like good is the part that they know how to close out unfinished storylines or reference some unfinished storyline. So the idea of bringing in Baram to the world of Dissidia and then meeting up with Shadow could be an interesting dynamic. Baram could be a thief-like guy because him and the original Shadow, spoilers, Clyde, are the Shadow. The two of them are called Shadow. It's just that Baram perished. Maybe Baram is Kefka, but that's another theory. But yeah, Baram. Also, we need to have an alt for Shadow where it looks like Clyde. I mean, it may not be acknowledged in the game, but it's a nice touch because it's universally known Clyde is Shadow and Shadow is Realm's dad. So yeah, Baram will be my pick. Another consensus pick for Final Fantasy VI is... who was it? The guy... let me look at it. FF6 optional characters. Oh yeah, we got Umaro, we got the Mughals, but the Mughals are already there. We got Gogo, the one in the Zone Eater, but it's a Mog, so he's a mime. I'm sorry, I mean, and mimes are pretty hard to do. Also, the Raiden thing with Odin, kind of bit complicated. Am I right? Final Fantasy 7. Everyone knows that the consensus pick is Red 13. So I made a huge play here. I kind of want Whis. To be fair, when they announced that global first characters are going to be back, we haven't had a global first villain. Unless you count Beatrix as a villain. But Beatrix is more of an anti-hero and she got redeemed. We need a pure type villain. You see? I'm not gonna count Aranea as a villain as well. She is an anti-hero. So, if you're a global first character, you're either an anti-hero or someone from FF15. How many global first characters do we have? Core. Yeah. Core isn't an anti-hero. Is He's downright a hero. So if we get a global first villain, it could be Whis. Man, see him as a DPS, obviously. Maybe he will have his kit could have break unbreak mechanics. It could be a debuffer like a dodge. And speaking of Kadaj, other possible choice for FF7, Los Yazu, Rufus Shinra. Yeah. Consensus number 1 pick for FF7 is Red 13. Can also have Yuffie's boyfriend. Forgot his name. The one from the DLC. Okay. Next. Edea from Final Fantasy VIII. So, hear me out. I think Edea as a costume is a waste. Because the potential of Edea as a character is pretty good. You can have ice spikes as her EX, so she can be an ice elemental magic DPS. And that's kind of a good thing. Final Fantasy VIII is like the elements thunder and wind. Maybe Zell for lightning, but we need to have an ice person. So Edea can fit the role, but I think the consensus pick for FF8 was Kyros or Ward, because FF8 doesn't have a tank at their roster unless you count Raijin and his debuff as a way to tank damage. But that's not tanking per se, that's like you're gonna do something to make yourself as a tank. Anyway, Edea is a wasted as a skin for Ultimecia. Hell, I've heard people pronounce it as Ultimeca. Yeah, you can center her as that ice DPS. If you want a skin for Ultimecia, you can have her Griever outfit in Dissidia where she has that Griever look. But the thing is, I think Junction Griever will be a final boss form of Ultimecia in the storyline, because in Japan we got Safer Sephiroth, who is a pain in the ass and I can't beat yet. I'm gonna wait till the next Power Grip to beat Safer Sephiroth. But yeah, Edea for FF8. FF9, the consensus pick is obviously Amaranth and pretty much Quina, Blue Mage, but look, these two, Zorn and Thorn, debuffers, like the person that they are based into, Kefka, Zorn, Thorn in the storyline, that it would be an absolute gold. How do they work? I think they're more debuff-ish. They work as a one unit, so they're like the twins, Lan and Rain, but instead of Lan and Rain, Zorn and Thorn. You can have their EX combining into that final boss form and going berserk. They can introduce a new debuff called Virus. They can have HP poison if they want. Zorn and Thorn, I think, will be like a miniature version of Kefka. I mean, Kefka's debuffs are more of debilitating the opponent's stats. How about Zorn and Thorn up it up and debilitate the opponent further by making them get extra damage, like poison or HP damage taken up, brave damage taken up. Magic Imperial. Hope is the only Magic Imperial unit. We can have Zorn and Thorn like that. The possibilities are endless for Zorn and Thorn for FF9 pick. FF10, obviously, Rico is the consensus pick. She has been in data mine hell for centuries. We're about to reach 5 years of DFFOO in JP, and Rico got data mined 5 years early. That's an Ancient One reference. So, I think the best next big thing for FF10, Shuyin. Dunbury Troop made an April Fool's infographic of Shuyin. The main problem with Shuyin is his kit is very much similar to Tidus. So, what happens if you have a very similar kit? You revert that role. The role of Tidus is more of a offensive debuffer, Why not make Shuyin a selfish DPS? I mean, he's already selfish enough. Unleash the Vegna gun. Yeah. And he is a potential burst candidate because he is the main villain of Final Fantasy X too. So his burst weapon could be summoning Vegna gun. Am I right? So, Shuyin. Other thing to note is, if you don't want him to be like a copy of Tidus, the next best thing is to implement the dress sphere. Not implement the dress sphere on Shuyin, but get some skills from the warrior dress sphere, like breaks and stuff, or samurai dress sphere, like that. Incorporate them on Shuyin, so that it is a lot less Tidusy, if you know what I mean. Next is FF11. We got the Shadow Lord. Shadow Lord is the main villain of the story, so he's a burst candidate, potential burst candidate. I mean, they made Zand work. He's a tall guy. Zand is a tall guy in Opera Omnia standards. So having Shadow Lord as a unit in Opera Omnia seems fine to me. Obviously, it's dark, tied to the dark element. It's gonna be a DPS, maybe a hybrid magic physical DPS. I don't know. And I think his design looks cool. And furthermore, the consensus is Tenzen, but Tenzen is a male and a protagonist. And I think the devs are leaning towards FF11. The protagonists are females. FF11. The antagonists are males. So, yeah. Sorry, Tenzen. I think that's the standard that the devs are going for FF11. Shadow Lord. So, Camelot's getting a burst. Ildar already has a burst, so we got 3 burst villains, potentially, if Shadow Lord is entered into DFFOO. So, I want Shadow Lord in as a representative in the future for FF11. Next is Redas. Now, between Redas and Lars, I think Lars is the more consensus number 1 pick from the remaining FF12 candidates to be in DFFOO, so I went Redas here. Redas is a straight up pirate, so DFFOO loves their pirates. They got Layla in the game. So yeah, we got a DPS evade pirate again, like Layla. And I'm fine with that. I like Redas as a character. He can have the Bushido skill set in Final Fantasy 12. So, what there is any limit for Mr. Redas. FF13, Dicely. People will say Bartandelos is very hard to code because he's too huge. And I agree. So why not get Bartandelos' skill and apply it to Dicely instead, his human form, the Pope. So you can have Seymour. Seymour has his transformation moves, and we only see the base form of Seymour on the field. So you can see that for Dicely. You can have his Bartandelos abilities, but Dicely is the one on the field. Another burst candidate for FF13, Dicely. So, yeah. So, Snow, Null, Caius, Lightning, and if Dicely is in the game, he's the 5th person to get a burst for FF13 if he ends up being added. He's obviously magic. His kit is tied to what Bartandelos does in FF13, and obviously I see him as a DPS. I don't see him as a support. Another role that he can do is, I don't know, maybe he's selfish. He could be selfish, to be honest. Next, FF14, Estinian, Dragoon. We all know what Dragoon do. They jump, they evade Lufenia orbs. I wish I had Freya to defeat Saber Sephiroth. Estinian, he can have the Dragoon skill set of FF14. Obviously, he's gonna have jump. I mean, what Dragoon character doesn't have jump? Even Sid has jump. And yeah, there's not much about to say. I haven't played FF14. I will play FF14 in December if I get the subscription right. I'm filming this in my newly furnished personal computer, so if I get Adobe, I can edit my videos better. We can live with that. But yeah, Estinian, FF14. Obviously, the consensus is a burst character in form of Xenos. We're just waiting for him to show up. He's like the Dissidia representative, not yet in the game. I think he's gonna be the big bad by the end of Act 3. So yeah, Estinian. FF15, there's nothing much left. Iris is good, but I don't know what she can provide. Somnus is good. I was considering General Golka, to be honest. And if General Golka is added, can he be a burst candidate? General Golka is the main antagonist of the Kingsglaive movie. But I'm here using Nyx Ulrich. He could also be a burst candidate. He could also be a global burst because he's in FF15. Nyx Ulrich is an agile glaive. And that's something that we haven't seen yet in the glaives in FF15 in DFFOO. You got a tank with Gladio, a gunner. Ignis is your dagger user, but he is more of a support. Noctis is your agile unit, but he is a short sword user. So we can have this guy, Nyx. He has warp abilities, and he can have some Arden mechanics, and he can have evade mechanics. What do you mean Arden mechanics, Harriet? You see, in the story of Kingsglaive, he borrowed the power pluses only to die 24 hours after getting those powers. I think that's the catch. So, yeah, Nyx is dead. And we all know what happens to dead characters in Opera Omnia. We got Zack, his burst ability, his burst effect is actually immortality. Gallup immortality, Arden is immortality. So, Nyx can have immortality. Only when you think about it, Vivi doesn't have immortality, does he? Maybe Vivi doesn't exist. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Nyx Ulrich FF15. Delita, I think, is the tactics consensus pick. So I went with Orlando. I think it's damn near impossible to code Orlando in this game because this guy cannot be power crept. But they already got power crept in War of Divisions. So who am I referring to? Also, his skills are already got by Agrias. Agrias is using like most of his skills. So what else is left to do on Orlando? Obviously, he is a selfish DPS. Obviously, he is gonna be slow as fuck. But when he gets his turn, he's gonna hit hard, like Rainbow hard. That's how I see Orlando. And he's gonna be tied to the thunder element. So that's nice. Completing the trio of Kiss and Lael, we got Belle. Belle is a Selkie like Kiss and is a simp, I think, for the lack of better term, to Lael. So yeah, I can see Belle as a Crystal Chronicles character to be added in the future. Who knows? I don't know. I haven't played Crystal Bearer yet. Yeah, so I don't know what she does. Maybe she's like a thief, so she has thief mechanics. Going in to Type 0, we got Tease. who will be our mage for type 0. So yeah, that's it for all of the things that I've blubbered. So this video is going to be a pre-recorded video. So it's gonna be recorded now. I'm gonna upload it to YouTube, and it's gonna be scheduled maybe 8 hours from now. So yeah, that's the video. Thank you for watching, and yeah, see you around. Goodbye. It is better outro, to be honest, but who am I to judge? Thank you for watching. Goodbye.